Do you ever want to dive deeper into the Bible, but you just don't know where to begin or struggle to feel like you even have the time? When you read the Bible, do you get frustrated because you know there is so much more in there? You just have no clue how to get it out. Or maybe you just want to know the Bible better and you're looking for any resource to help. Well, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Context and Color of the Bible podcast. We are two sisters. I'm Erica.
And I'm Veronica.
We love to study the Bible and help others understand it better. When it comes to our own study of Scripture, we have found that in bringing back the context of Scripture, it adds so much to our understanding. It actually adds color to the black and white pages of the text.
So I think we started this Daniel series 2 years ago.
I don't know.
Maybe 3. I know. We teased a while ago. Oh, we need to do this Daniel or Nebuchadnezzar arc.
Right. We did the end.
We did the end. And now we're coming back to chapter 2. So in reality, I think we did Daniel 3, then 4, then 6.
But 5 was way
then
early.
5. 5 was somewhere not. Okay, maybe 5 was earlier, but we did not do anything in order of the chapters.
Yeah.
But we did at least do Daniel 1 a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And now we're doing Daniel 2.
So at least 2 of them are sequential.
So as these all get released, they might sound a little bit like, oh, I said we'd say that later and we didn't.
Yeah.
Or you might go, you already said that. Well, it's because it's been years in between. So, yes, Erica's very surprised. But with that, this is the Nebuchadnezzar arc. It's the start of the Nebuchadnezzar arc with chapter 2.
And I don't know if I've heard anyone actually refer to that, but that's kind of my lingo. Daniel chapter 1 is the overview of the whole book and introduces Daniel and primarily Daniel, but his friends. And then 2, 3, 4 creates this Nebuchadnezzar arc. Mm-hmm. I think I picked up on that when I was first teaching on chapter 3 because I really noticed so much of chapter 3 isn't about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It's about Nebuchadnezzar.
Okay.
Because it repeats his name over and over and over, and his actions, his words, his decrees, they only have one sentence in the whole chapter where they speaking dialogue. That's chapter 3.
Right.
But in doing that, and then when I moved on to teach chapter 4, I was like, wow, these 2 chapters are really about Nebuchadnezzar. And then I noticed when looking back to chapter 2 that it is almost like a strike 1, strike 2, and then what's going to happen to Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 4? Will it be strike 3 or out or not? So that's where I started coining the Nebuchadnezzar arc.
So I think with that, a Bible study tip is don't always read the headlines above
they can be
each chapter because
helpful or misleading. So, yeah.
Although mine says the image of the golden fiery furnace for chapter 3.
Okay.
So, but all right. So with that, chapter 2.
Chapter 2 begins in the second year of his reign. Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his mind was troubled. He could not sleep. So much wrapped up. As always, I feel like we read the first verse and then I'm like, okay, let's talk for a half hour about all the context here. It's a good name for a podcast.
Set the stage? Oh, context? Yes, it is. You always do that and it throws me off. It's like, oh yeah, we do have a name, don't we?
Branding. So this is the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. And if you remember last time, as we were looking at chapter 1, I had noted chapter 1 begins at the beginning of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, even slightly before, actually, because he is, in 605, he's leading the armies of Babylon. His father, who's king, is back at home, but in failing health, and that's where chapter 1 begins. His father dies. Nebuchadnezzar has to rush back, consolidate his power, and in that, around that movement, that's where Daniel and some of the men of Judah are in that first exile group. So now we're in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, which is very early in his reign. He lasted about 30 years in his overall reign. And here in the second year, he's about 31 years old, according to scholars' calculation. So he lasts for quite a while, but he doesn't know that. We don't know that yet. It's really uncertain. Even his father, he had fought against the Assyrian Empire. They had started to decline around 612 BC. And then by 605, that's where Nebuchadnezzar puts the final nail in the coffin. So that 7-year period is Assyria collapsing, and now Babylon is emerging as the powerful nation in the Middle East, but it's only 2 years in, and like, who knows? These winds of change can go very quickly in opposite directions. So, second year of his reign, it's early in his reign, and actually it's in the middle of chapter 1, because remember how long Daniel and his friends were in a training program. In chapter 1, they're to be trained for 3 years. So it's kind of a flashback. I described it to you, like if C.S. Lewis fans, if you've read Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, you know that The Horse and His Boy takes place within the story of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. This is kind of that concept. This snapshot, this chapter 2 actually takes place still within Daniel and his friends' 3-year training session. So they're still young. We had talked about them being young teens. They're still at that. So keep that in mind as the chapter unfolds. Nebuchadnezzar is 2 years past, or maybe a little over a year past his father passing away. He's struggling to establish the Babylonian Empire, his kingdom, as will it last? Will it die? Certainly a lot of enemies, a few alliances with the Medes. And there's a lot of questions I'm sure he would have been wrestling with at this point. And in this stage, he has a dream. And we talked a little bit about it in chapter 1. Because of the training program we know Daniel and his friends went into, we know Babylon was the preeminent center of learning in the ancient world, especially at this time. And a lot of the things that they would be focused on would be mathematics and science, astrology, all of the occult arts and things. And dreams were a huge thing. The dream interpretation, and especially signs and omens, were very powerful to the Babylonian and Assyrians as well. But these ancient Near Eastern cultures. So when the king is in this crisis moment, I'm sure stressing over the potential fate of himself and his empire, and then he has this terrifying dream. The question is, what's going on here? What's this dream? What could it mean? And I don't think dreams always necessarily mean every dream you have is something God's trying to bring. But in this particular instance, this was significantly troubling to him, just like Pharaoh's dreams in Genesis, and Joseph's brothers and family had dreams. And so this is another one of those key moments where God was using a pagan king and his pagan beliefs for God's purposes. And this dream fits in exactly with their worldview and their belief system, that, these dreams are messages sent from the gods that are to help lead us in particular directions. And this particular one seems to have a very ominous tone to it because it kept him from sleeping. So what do you do if you're a new king and you're trying to figure out what this divine message is?
Bring in your people to tell you.
Bring in, yeah.
But in a way, you kind of go, if this is this is part of their life, they probably did have, you're my dream interpreters.
Yep.
This would just be, okay, I had a dream, bring these people in. It's not like he woke up and went, oh, I had a dream, I better find people to interpret. They probably were already established of here, and probably had credentials in a way. Track record of, oh, you worked with my dad, you've helped this person.
Dream school.
Yeah,
dream school. Yeah, dream 101.
Apprentices. But that because I guess I'd never thought about, he just doesn't summon random people.
Yes.
It's definitely, this is what your part of your job description was.
Yep.
So, hey, bring them in. Let's talk it through. Help me figure it out.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great point. So who he brings in the professionals, and I've got the NIV here, the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, astrologers. That last term in some translations says Chaldeans. But there's a whole host of scientific, academic experts at the king's beck and call. But you're right. I think he brought in 4 particular classes of professionals for specific reasons. So like the magicians are these scholars that knew the pagan and arcane knowledge. So these are the same term is used of the magicians that are in Pharaoh's court that Moses has the conflict with. And so they might know spells. They might know like how to summon powers. So we want these guys in because maybe this dream was sent from an enemy nation. Right. Maybe they got a god to come and plant this horrible omen. And so I need to have these other magicians to create a powerful spell to counteract that one. So that's one class. The enchanters are referred to because they're specifically allow people to communicate to the dead. So perhaps I can get wisdom if I go to the ancestors or people from beyond the veil, and they can reveal these knowledge because, they're maybe outside of the power of these spells that are coming on me, and they can reveal to me something from beyond. The sorcerers, let me get back to again, like they can cast spells. They know these mysteries. They practice dark magic and spells. And then the astrologers read the skies and they can look, is there the Babylonians, especially the Babylonians, I think were very heavily into trying to read signs and wonders from the sky and, what's going to be communicated to us. So all these guys are coming in to help both counteract potential powers being brought upon Nebuchadnezzar, but also to then look to supernatural communication mediums that were the places they typically went to.
And he's got everybody. If in case I'm not missing anything, if it's dark magic, if it's stars, if it's signs, if it's messages or curses, I'm making sure I've got every dot. Yeah. I dotted. Yeah, my bases are covered. Thank you. That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah.
Just make sure, here it is. All of you work together, because you kind of picture them too working together then. Hey, this is my area of expertise, but we kind of overlap over here. So we're not missing anything. And I don't get a bad message, because then they also kind of could probably, check and balance each other.
Yep.
You know, so he really makes sure I've got good information coming.
Right, because maybe the astrologers can corroborate information here that the other people are getting from communicating with the dead. Like that's probably his intention. Yep. So this is really the best of the best of the advisors, the professionals, and I would say, from our perspective, looking back, this is several groups of people that are tapping into demon and occult powers. Right. From our perspective, not good things to be tapping into, but that was their culture and their who they looked to for wisdom and insight. And Nebuchadnezzar brings them all in, these professionals. Remember, these are the professionals. Daniel and his friends, they're not here yet. They're not in the midst of this. And he says, I have had a dream and it troubles me. We know it troubles him so much he can't sleep anymore. He's like, I want to know what it is, what it means. The astrologers, are like, "O king, live forever," all the, formalities and such. Tell your servant the dream and then we'll interpret it. And the king comes back. He's like, no, I've firmly decided I want you to tell me what the dream was and interpret it. Or I'm going to cut you into pieces and have your houses turned into piles of rubble.
Well, because even with that, then he's not responsible for giving the wrong dream. Oh, I told you the wrong image. I told it to you in the wrong order. If all those parts of the dream matter, the order matters, what you saw matters, well, I don't want to screw it up and give you the wrong information, so then you give me the wrong interpretation.
Yeah.
So this way he really goes, okay, this should all work. You all will know exactly what I saw. Mm-hmm. It takes him off the hook in a way.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I think it's chapter 4, he does relay what his dream is. Mm-hmm. But here he doesn't. And there's another interesting idea that I have, but I think I'll save the reason why when the actual dream is
revealed. When
the interpretation is revealed. Because there's some like, oh, that could fit. I could see that fitting. But he's definitely putting these guys in a pickle.
Mm-hmm. I can't imagine.
Whole lot easier to, even if, we'll give these guys a benefit of the doubt that they knew they were charlatans and, not, if worst case, they're tapping into demonic powers to get wisdom and insight beyond human wisdom. Best case, they know that they're charlatans and fakes and frauds and trying not to, get killed.
Right.
And now they're like, oop.
The jig is up.
The jig is up. And this is a young king. This is new. Like, I think there's a certain amount where he's trying to establish himself. Authority. You guys may have served my father well, but can I trust you? Are you, are you solid or are you just a bunch of fakes?
And maybe he doesn't know better.
Yeah.
Maybe he's young enough and new to this. It's like, oh, I don't know. I'm supposed to tell you the dream and then you tell me. Yeah.
A little bit of feeling like Rehoboam, not following wisdom and following the young people and like, I'm just going to fly off the handle. And, yeah, that's very possible.
A lot of factors that could go into this.
So yeah, they kind of go like verse 7. Yeah, good one, king. You had us scared for a second there, but really tell us the dream and we'll give you the interpretation. And in verse 8, the king's like, now I'm really sure you're trying to just buy time because what I've decided is firm. So if you don't tell me, there's one penalty, and he's actually, this fits into that being early in his reign. He talks about you're conspiring against me to mislead me, and you're hoping that I'm going to change my mind. So he's already seeing them as in collusion. Maybe he's afraid that these guys are trying to overthrow him. So he gives them one last chance. And this is where, when you go back and forth and finally like the pressure becomes so much that the truth kind of gets squeezed out. They're like, King, there's no one on earth who can do what you're asking for. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods, and they don't live among the humans. So before you read on, knowing what we've already talked about, with Nebuchadnezzar and knowing what he's already threatened and where he's at in his reign and his youth and his impetuousness, how do we think he's going to respond to that comment from the profession?
Like throwing down the challenge.
Yeah.
You're asking something that's so impossible. There's nobody. Now it's like, oh, if I can do it though, I've just upped how amazing I am that I've got these people around me that can do this. Because when you go, no one else can do it. It's to me, it's a challenge. Not to me personally, but to my boys, I think it's a challenge. No one can do whatever. And it's like, oh, watch this. So to me, it kind of feels like they're trying to go, but also give him a gracious way to back out. You're right. I asked for the impossible. You know, I'll take back what I said, but it's also a challenge. But I'm thinking of another thought too.
Yeah. It's knowing what we know. I know we're flashing forward into like chapters 3 and 4. Like Nebuchadnezzar is not.
He blows his top.
He blows his top.
That's right.
He's not going to be like, you know what? I'm going to listen to the voice of reason here. And
didn't you have him in one of the chapters, like the cartoon, like the steam coming out of his
chapter
ears
3.
And
he's so angry in chapter 3 when the professionals kind of, that's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When they're rejecting his authority, actually his face distorts. Like the text talks about his face contorting in rage. So here he blows his top too. Verse 12, this made the king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all the wise men. You know, originally it was just, okay, bring in group 1.
Right.
If they can't answer it, they're all dead. And then I'm sure it's group 2 will get a chance. But he's like, nope, I'm so angry. You're all going to die. I'm starting with a blank slate. You know, if you can't help me, I'm going to get in, I don't know, the blue collar workers of the day, or like somebody who's going to help me. And maybe this was fueled further by his apparently hinting at like a collusion or some sort of scheme that's going on. And I can just, clean house here. But going back to that statement, it's narratively speaking, it is a key introduction to the theme of this chapter, because the question revolves around who has this wisdom, this knowledge, who can reveal these hidden things. That's what the words are on the lips of these astrologers, and it's a challenge to Nebuchadnezzar. But as a reader, we're supposed to go, yeah, you know what? They're right. They're speaking reasonable. No one can do this. What the king is asking for is too difficult for a human. And no one can reveal it except the gods. And that's just an interesting point. But they do not live among the humans, which is, just a fascinating rabbit trail you could go down, thinking of Jesus becoming man, walking amongst us, and even the mysterious person in chapter 3 who's walking among the fiery furnace. But that's something for your listeners can ponder, some of the connections between chapter 2 and 3 and that one. But that is the key theme, and this is the drive shaft of chapter 2, and revolving around what is the conflict, what is the message, and what Nebuchadnezzar is demanding. And that's where we see, where the answers will come, is when that question is answered.
It's also in a way setting up, to me, kind of something you're going to see. Who can do this except the gods? And it's like, okay, then those who serve that kind of strong God, how does he protect them in chapter 3? And then in chapter 6 with the Daniel and the lion's den, of just constantly jockeying. And I think back to Exodus then, of who's stronger, Pharaoh's gods or the Israelites' gods?
Yes.
I mean, there's this slight undertone of Oh, you're challenging God. You're setting
Yep.
up. You're setting the stage for God to come and go, watch this.
Yes.
You want to see how amazing I am? You want to see how amazing I can work through my people? You want to see how my people are willing to follow me even to death? Then watch this. So it's kind of a challenge God to set the stage with a set stage to go, hey, show how cool you are and your presentation and power. And he might take you up on that.
Yes. Yeah, and there's a lot of connections to that picture of the Exodus that you're mentioning. This is very much a battle of within the court, the royal court, and behind the people that are battling are the gods that are being brought in, and then Israel's God, who is preeminent and the one true God. So Nebuchadnezzar's order goes out, and all of not just this initial group that came in to talk to the king was going to be killed, but all of the wise men of Babylon. And so the decree goes out, and it's issued to put all the wise men to death. And then men were sent to also look for Daniel and his friends, who, remember, they're still in the training program. So we're killing the cadets as well as the full officers, the professional class, everybody. And that's where now we bring Daniel from chapter 1 into this story, and where he begins to feature, which we should save for the next episode.
Good cliffhanger of what's going to happen. Because you go, okay, this king is so irrational. You're going to wipe out. So what happens when you calm down after whatever this dream happens, and now you don't even have your trainees?
Yeah.
Or your cadets, as you call them. I mean, you got nobody. You're starting. Who's teaching them? Who's training them up? Nobody's around. It's not like, okay, well, here's the master, here's the apprentice. It's like, no, we got no one.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Not a great plan.
No.
Not well thought through.
No. But even that makes me think of King Xerxes and Esther with Vashti. Get rid of all the women. Get rid of her and wipe out this, wipe out all these people and send out this decree of just pagan kings don't make good decisions. So, all right. So I think that's it. Next week we'll come back. This is actually going to be 3 parts for this chapter. So next week we'll start to get into the dream, and then the third week will be the actual interpretation of it.
Yep.
So as always, check us out on social media. We've always got our newsletter, and if you say, okay, I've got questions, I've got thoughts, sign up for our newsletter, and then you can always respond back, and I will pass them on to Bryan and Erica. So thanks did you want to say anything? Have you said anything today, Eric?
No, I'm good.
She's quietly sitting next to us. So thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.